This is John Baldwin, Dr. Speed Selling, welcoming you to the Raging Verbalist number 174. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome. If you're a long-time person, great. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you want to be harassed, hit the notification. We pump these out about once a week. Keep you up to date on what's going on and rattling around in my head. Also, you can check us out on Facebook, and the Facebook location is Position to Win Book. Facebook group. You can also add comments there and they will make it back to me. And of course, as always, we have the lovely Sandra. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, and Sandra is sitting there. She is, we are dealing with mismatching of lighting. So since it is kind of a spooky topic that we're talking about today, maybe my lighting is appropriate. So we'll see. So today we're going to talk about, and just so you know, I don't really touch a lot about politics, but I do talk about current things that happen that are interesting, definitely business oriented, and away we go. So I titled this one, "The Man Who Fell to Earth." So Sandra, what do you want to know? Ask me the tough question.
All right, so where did you come up with The Man Who Fell to Earth?
So for those of you who know or don't know, I mean, I guess there was a series that was done on streaming, but before that, there was a movie starring David Bowie from 1976. And essentially it is from a novel. And this guy falls to Earth. And what happens when he falls to Earth as a space alien? And of course, that tied in well for what we're going to talk about, especially when we're talking about a high-flying, high profile, we're the top company that, well, it fell to earth. So that's why I said this would be a good one. Besides which, if you've never seen the movie, check it out. I liked it a lot, but again, that was years ago. Never read the book and never saw the other series, but why not? So that's it. The Man Who Fell to Earth is what we're talking about today, and a specific man fell to earth.
All right, so why does it seem to be so hard to go into space given the billionaires that are chasing this dream?
Well, and so the answer to that is a simple one. Space is hard. Now, you might want to write that one down. It's simple to remember. But of course, we have Elon Musk chasing this. We have Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame chasing this. Then we have Richard Branson. And Richard Branson is who we're going to talk about today. The reason why it's so hard is that it just costs an enormous amount of money. I think that the people who have $1 billion, which by the way is 1,000 million, which is like a lot, goes, wow, how hard can this be? Well, all you have to do is look at the amount of money that the U.S. and the then USSR Soviet Union spent on trying to go to space, and you'll get an idea, especially if you adjust it for inflation, that it costs a ton of dough to get into space. Hard to do. By the way, it is. We have been fascinated as a species for, I guess now we could say, centuries. In fact, one of the first movies was, an adaptation of Jules Verne's novel about going to the moon, and they, fired him out of a cannon. So, but it always sounds like a pretty cool thing to do, and everybody says, well, we know how to do it. Why can't we go out and just knock it out? And well, we'll find out what happened.
All right, so what was Richard Branson's unique approach to launching into space?
So since everything he talks about is Virgin, he ended up with this thing called Virgin Orbit. And Virgin Orbit was an interesting company and an interesting take. So what he wanted to do is to take his launch vehicle, and instead of starting off with a rocket that's being held by gravity, if you ever wonder if gravity is a real thing, just go watch a rocket launch off of a pad, especially go back in time and watch like one of those old Saturn V going to the moon ones. I mean, it is a lot of energy and effort to break the bonds of gravity. So the other way to do this is to then attach this thing to the bottom of another vehicle like an airplane. And his thinking was, okay, I'm going to take a 747. That's a big 4-engine jet. I'm going to attach my launch vehicle to it. They're going to get me up in the air, 30, 40, maybe even 50,000 feet in the air. By the way, if you've ever been flying, Typically, and when I'm flying to Denver, you're sitting there riding along at 37,000 feet, which is like serious. I mean, that's, several miles up. Well, that was the idea. So that was it's going to be cheaper because I don't have to invent a rocket, a launch rocket, to get the rest of my stuff into space. And that was the push. And in fact, it was a belief that, people were going to pay money and they were going to get out to space, really kind of the edge of space. It wasn't designed to go way, way, way out into space, but it would be really cool and people would love to do it. And then maybe at some point in time, it would be, more usable and more practical. So that was the initial ambition. This is not a new idea. In fact, the rocket jet programs that finally broke like the sound barrier, back in the 1940s and 50s, all of that was designed with the same idea, which is you attach this rocket jet, like the X-15 was one of them for historical reference, and people would go, hey, we'll just attach this to a big giant, I think it was a B-52 bomber, take that baby up, and if you've never seen a B-52 bomber, I have seen a whole bunch of them. In fact, if you want to go see the graveyard for them, it's actually just outside of Tucson, Arizona. But massive freaking plane, 8 engines, designed to fly, drop the big bombs on somebody else. So why not, attach this rocket thing to it the way it goes? So that was his spin. That was his, I think this is going to allow me to do it on the cheap, if you will. Maybe I can get this thing off the ground, pun intended.
All right. What were the factors that drove it to failure and eventually bankruptcy?
The president of Virgin Orbit had come out of Boeing, actually had come out of other places, but had come out of Boeing. And, once you start hiring aerospace engineers and, when people say, well, I don't need to be a rocket scientist, if you're going to go to space, you really do need to be a rocket scientist. I mean, no two ways about it. You want to be a rocket scientist. So what happened is that he started hiring all these people. And what you discover is that your costs are crazy. And what drove this to bankruptcy is that he was burning money like there was no tomorrow. Now, his belief, the belief was, is that if we could show progress, we could kind of, get more money as time went on, and away you would go. Now, started it in, I think it was 2017. They formed it and spun it off. So it fits in very nicely with what I talk about, and this is really important for everybody. Maybe I should have sent this to Richard when I, got it out there, but what he did is very classic, which is, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to have it happen, 3 to 5 years to have that take place, right? So now that's what Position to Win is all about. And that's the realization that happened to him. And we are at the almost exactly, we're a little over the 5-year point. So, but the amount of money that he was burning was huge. And by the way, it was just like millions and tens of millions a month. So if you don't want that to happen to yourself, you can go pick this baby up. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever books are sold, and ask for a physical copy, and they should be able to get it for you. Also, you can go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. Check it out, some free stuff, some cool stuff. Also, you can get it autographed and on its way. And it's also available in every e-form you can imagine. It's available in Kindle, Nook, and Apple. And then there's also a remote work for a better world, which talks about using Zoom and how to use it effectively, which most people don't do. And you might check out our new Raging Verbalist mugs. Now, all I can say is the mug would not have helped him. The book may have helped him, but the reality is that he was burning money like he had it. And what you learn is that, he was a baby billionaire, not a big billionaire. They raised money through a SPAC. They raised money through an offering, and yikes, it was not enough. They burned through the money, and They went and filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means they might make it back. Going to be hard to see if they actually have enough to do it.
All right. Given Virgin Orbit's failure, will that make it even more difficult for private companies to go into space?
I think what it does is it proves that since it is so very expensive, and no matter how much you believe in the dream and want it to go forward, I think it makes it more difficult for somebody to go out, especially interest rates have gone up and money has changed, and we have a lot of things going on globally. You really need not hundreds of millions, but maybe billions of dollars. You need something to back you up, and you need to be able to keep raising money, because you really have a giant furnace that you're shoveling money into, and it just burns it up. So I think it's going to make it more difficult for people to do that. There are a lot of companies, given the high profile of the three, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson, that started up. And I wonder if they're going to make it or not, because there's a lot of companies that have jumped into this thing, and we'll see. But they're probably going through the same, burning through the money until they run out of it, and then where do you go from there? So my prediction is going to be tougher, even though everybody would like, and I'm saying there is a drive, there is a sense that we need to get back into space, and what that's going to look like, and is that going to really happen?
Right. We can't avoid the elephant in the room. SpaceX just had a major event, so can you describe it?
So they launched their big, heavy rocket, and this was supposed to be the one this was the test that was going to show that they could deliver a crew to the space station and do all of those wonderful things. And they were going to launch from Texas and land in California. I wonder if that's a taxable event in California. Maybe it is. But anyway, so they launch it, and it's a massive rocket. And you absolutely should go and check out the video of it. And what happened is that, several of the rocket engines didn't fire off, and it basically destroyed itself. So the exciting part is that it took off, it cleared the pad, it cleared the tower, and it got up into, it didn't even get close to orbit, and then it just blew up. And now, if you are in the space business, the fact that the first time you fired this way and you actually cleared the pad and all of that, that's actually a huge step forward. For the investment community, or for the average person, they're going to see this as an abject failure. And given what just happened with Virgin, does this mean that Elon is going to have enough cash, especially since he's got, Twitter burning money and Tesla isn't making as much money and he just took a hit? Will they have enough dough to do it? Don't know, but I hope he does, because it was a major thing. And but you should definitely check it out. And I have a lot of sympathy for anybody who's attempting this kind of project, because it is a tough, tall task, as we just seen. And but Elon has put together quite a team. So fingers are crossed that he makes it back to the pad.
Right. And why does it seem so impossible for us to get back into space?
It's interesting because there was such a push when there was this competitive Cold War situation. And I lived through that, and I was super excited about space. My sister worked for Martin Marietta, which later became Lockheed Martin, which then got spun off to United Launch Alliance, and she had worked on the Titan missile program. And no, she didn't have a wrench or anything, but she was part of the contracts team. And but there was a whole big push, and it was exciting, and we got to space. But eventually what happened is that the luster of it, the excitement of it, we went to the moon and all that, and they canceled space. I mean, which was really sad. And then, we kind of stumbled along, and then eventually we ended up with the shuttle, and now the shuttle is retired. We have a space station kind of out there. But the reason why it's so difficult is that it costs so much money. And lots of people have said, I've got a better idea. And no one has been able to actually prove that you can do it reliably, inexpensively, and just knock it out. So I think that's really the reason why we haven't sent a lot of people into space. Yes, we have a space station, and I hope it keeps growing and improving. Now, the sad news, if you really think about it, is that the last time we went to the moon was the 1970s, and people said, well, the reason why we don't want to do any more of this is that we're not going to get any benefit here. And I think that was really short-minded thinking, primarily because when you ask what did we end up getting from the space program, well, how about microprocessors were really helped. We drove a lot of those developments in semiconductors, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now without them. So also networking, satellites, it keeps going on and on. So yeah, I think it's a priorities and money thing.
All right. And for those who are dreaming big, what can they learn from Richard Branson's overreach in this project?
Well, I think the toughest thing that happened to Richard Branson, the really toughest thing that happened to him, is the fact that, so he put on these rose-colored glasses and he said, you know what, I've got enough dough and I'm going to just get some seed capital. I'm getting these guys coming out of Boeing. They've done it before. They've got experience. We've got a different launch capability. We've got all of these things going along, and it's just going to come along and work great. And all of that sounded marvelous and wonderful, and everything was just, as the Brits would say, tickety-boo. However, what happened is that as often is the case, is that when you are going after a big dream, whatever that big dream is for you, you have to ask yourself some simple questions, which I'll share with you now. Number one is really getting the totality of the project laid out. And that's hard to do. Second thing is that there's always Murphy out there, and Murphy rides for free. So anytime you think something is going to work the way it should work and everybody's done all the right things, probably going to have some issues and problems that you didn't expect, which leads us to number three, which is the fact that any project is going to take twice as long and cost 4 times as much, or be 4 times as long and twice as much, or some factor of that, and that takes place. So if you have this big dream, if you have this great idea, the thing that you want to ask yourself is there a way to build this in its stages and phases? Can I actually prove this as it goes out, which is exactly what they were trying to do. However, given their burn rate, given what was going on, they were just not going to get there. I hope that Richard Branson finds the dough, or somebody finds the dough to pick up on that technology, because it had made a lot of sense to me of how he was going to launch it. I hope that somebody can actually learn from these things. Anytime we have this lurch forward in any technology, the reality of it is that there's going to be some issues, there's going to be some failures, and that's just part of the game. So if you don't want to have a failure in your own life, in your own successes, then you probably want to rein in how far you're going to go. I would never say to anybody, don't dream big. But what I would say is make sure that you can achieve success and get to where you need to go, and make sure that you have that stick-to-itiveness, that relentlessness, and more importantly, that you have that plan of when you're going to, if you will, stop it, because you're not going to go any further. So what I'd like to do is thank you for watching with us, and for myself, John Paul Mendoza, and the ever lovely Sandra. This has been the Raging Verbalist number 174, and we'll be seeing you soon.